Please be seated. Witness one.
Thank you very much, witness. Mr. Steinberg, please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honours. Ms. McFadden, before the break, you were telling the court about the recruitment of staff and about procedures that were put in place to ensure the impartiality of staff. In that regard, can I ask you to turn to tab 10 of your bundle?
I mean, ensure the impartiality of staff.
That's what I said, but I see it's been recorded as impartiality of staff. Tab 10 of the bundle, please, if you have your glasses with you. And the ERN is, again, very small, 00410773. So that this is a list of the CPEV staff which you provided to the OTP.
Mr. Steinberg, pourriez-vous...
Mr. Steinberg, could you confirm the level of confidentiality, please?
Well, perhaps I can ask you this, sir. I understand that the composition of CPEV is a matter of public record. Is that correct?
It may be prudent. Let's leave this one inside. Yes.
Very well. Confidential then for the time being.
Yes, it depicts the CPEV Secretariat staff as the list.
Very well. Confidential then for the time being.
Yes, it depicts the...
To recruit suitable investigators for the Commission?
Well, it was apparent we needed an investigative team, and to that end we did two things really. One, we sought from internationals because we felt that international expertise would be necessary to support our investigation team, or in fact lead it. And in addition, obviously, we sought to recruit from Kenyans to comprise our investigative team. I mean, one of the issues, of course, was that we didn't want to have seconded or recruited, for example, from the security forces from Kenya, because, of course, one of the mandates for our commission was to investigate the acts and omissions of security agencies.
And who did you then select as your head of investigations?
We selected Bob Grinstead, who was originally from Canada, from the RCMP, in fact, and but at that time, and still is, I believe, based in New Zealand, and he had an investigations role with the Independent Police Complaints Authority in New Zealand.
For the record, the RCMP, I believe, is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, correct?
That's correct.
And were there any other internationals in the investigative team?
Yes, one other international, Melinda Ricks. Melinda,
I believe, is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, correct?
That's correct.
And
on a period of leave from the police, and much of her experience across general investigations, but also gender gender-based violence was her particular area of expertise as well.
Now, besides appointing an international investigator to lead the investigations, did the commissioners play any role in the oversight of investigations?
Well, yes. I mean, the commissioners collectively adopted a strategy about how we were going to conduct our business, which of course included investigations. So there was a strategy agreed to, and how the investigators operated in general terms was part of that strategy.
And as part of developing the investigation strategy, was any plan prepared?
Yes, there was. We asked, in fact, Bob Grinstead to prepare a plan, and he did so.
Prior to commencing the investigations proper, what information, if any, did the Commission seek to inform itself of the background to this inquiry?
Well, there were a number of pathways for us. Clearly, one was to look at material that had been gathered and produced by organisations during and post the post-election violence. A number of documents were available, media reports, for example, as well, been gathered and produced by organisations during and post the post-election. And in addition to that, we had some consultative meetings with entities and agencies to help inform us, if you like, to complete our work.
And who are these agencies with whom you met?
Well, we met with government agencies, including, for example, the Kenyan Police Service, the National Security Intelligence Service, and others. In addition, we met with a media group. We met with other groups that had specific contributions to make, for example, that were had interest and expertise in gender-based violence, for example.
How then did the Commission go about collecting its evidence?
Well, there were a number of ways. The most obvious one was to hold public hearings to hear from witnesses on oath. And many, if not all of those witnesses, provided statements, reports in some cases, testimony obviously. In addition to that, our investigators spoke to people. They took statements from a large number of Kenyans. And there was, of course, other documentation to people. They took statements from a large number of Kenyans. I guess starting with commitment, with witness one, for example. That first witness was a senior member of, or was the Commissioner, in fact, of Police. He and other heads of organisations were requested to provide evidence to come before the Commission in public and most of those witnesses provided not only testimony but also other exhibits to support their role. But there were other our investigators interviewed individuals and testified before us as well. And in yet other cases, witnesses were sourced by, in some cases, legal representatives, and in other cases, NGOs.
With respect to witnesses who were sourced by outside sources such as NGOs and legal representatives, and I'll return to the issue of legal representatives shortly, what part did your staff play in the collection of or the taking of their statements?
From memory, in that case, in some of those cases at least, statements were produced by counsel rather than our investigators.
Which counsel are you referring to?
Well, the counsel who were sourced the witnesses in the first place.
And were all the witnesses...
Mrs. Steinberg, can you tease out that point of inquiry more clearly? Because there may have been different counsel implicated at this stage. So I want to have a clear picture of whether we're talking commission counsel or legal representatives.
Perhaps it would be convenient then to deal with that issue now. Besides the
counsel implicated at this stage. So I want to have a clear picture of whether we're
legal representative applied for and many granted as having standing. So in most cases, those representatives were appeared at all of the hearings, public hearings at least, presenting their constituency.
And what selection or admission of counsel with standing?
Well, principally, the applications came from a legal representing a specific entity, a specific group.
Chamber, bear with me for 1 minute, please. And when you referred earlier to the fact that counsel in some instances produced statements, were you referring then to these counsel with standing?
Yes, on occasion that occurred, yeah.
And how did it come about that these counsel produced statements of witnesses or produced witnesses for the Commission?
The Commission asked counsel if they had witnesses to come before the Commission.
I see. I will return then to the methodology adopted at these hearings to hear the witnesses. But before I get there, were all the witnesses from whom statements were taken asked to testify before the Commission?
No, they weren't. I don't have a total number of how many witnesses' statements were taken, but it was many. Our Commission heard from weren't. I don't have a total number of how many witnesses' statements were
of witnesses from whom testimony would be heard orally.
Well, the testimony mandate, and in addition, many witnesses gave similar evidence, or at least similar information to our investigators. So constraints that the Commission had to hear witnesses. Decisions were taken around the representation of witnesses to provide evidence.
You used the passive. Who took that decision?
Counsel assisting as was the key determiner of who provided or who was available to provide evidence. But in saying that, he also provided a list, and from time to time the commissioners ourselves would look and see that some would be providing perhaps similar evidence and may not be required.
Besides the witnesses who testified before the Commission, did the Commissioners have access to the statements of those who had not been called to testify?
Yes, we did.
And are you aware whether the head of investigations, Mr. Grinstad, had any input into the selection of these witnesses?
Well, as part of the overall mandate, Mr. Grinstead would have assisted in that process in providing counsel assisting with statements of who said what, relevant to our mandate in the area that we were hearing witnesses.
Just on the issue of the witnesses that were heard in oral hearings, could I ask you to turn, please, to tab 9 of your bundle?
Who said what, relevant to our mandate in the area that we were hearing witnesses.
There's no ERN number. It should be 0. Can you confirm, sir, this is a document you provided?
Now, before you confirm, is this confidential or public?
Your Honours, I believe this is public. The names that appear on this document are only the names of persons who have testified in public hearings. The who testified in confidential hearings are simply referred to by a number, CW, and then a number. Unless the witness indicates any reason why confidentiality is required, I don't believe it is. Can you add anything to that, sir?
No, I think you're correct. Any witnesses whose name appears here would have given their evidence in public, and some individual witnesses chose to do just that.
And the only personal information which appears here is the name of the witness, the organisation or government body represented, and the titles of any documents they might have handed in as exhibits. I don't see the need for secrecy. May I proceed? May I proceed?
Proceed.
So is this in fact a document that you provided for the Office of the Prosecutor?
Yes, it's a list of the witnesses and exhibits at our proceedings.
And you confirm the correctness thereof?
Well, yes.
Your Honours, may this be entered then as the next in the list of prosecution documents. And I can just consult my list briefly. It seems that this is a document admitted certainly by the defence for Mr. Sang. I'm not sure of the status of Mr. Ruto's offence. It seems that this is a document admitted certainly by the defence for Mr.
You are seeking to tender this document as a prosecution exhibit.
Indeed, Your Honour.
Any objection?
We notified the prosecution last night by email that there was no objection, but the only thing I will clarify is just the transcript. It's clear that the proposed exhibit is annexed to the public version of the WACI report, but the question 48, line 14, to the witness that you provided for the Office of the Prosecutor, I presume it means to the prosecution. Generated by the witness, but from WACI, we accept it.
Yes, perhaps if I can clarify, there were certain annexes to the WACI Commission which were not in the possession of the prosecution, and the witness kindly provided the Office of the Prosecutor with those additional annexes, this being one of them.
Mr. Keegan-Katwa?
We have no objection.
The document is admitted as the next in the prosecution exhibits.
Document KENOTP 00410745 will have the number OTP 007, Prosecution Exhibit 127. The document is public.
Mr. President, before we move on, can I also indicate we have no objection to the document at tab 10, which was KENOTP 0041-0773. My learned friend put it to the witness. It's a list of SIPEV staff. No objection from the defence, if my learned friend wishes to exhibit it.
I'm grateful.
KENOTP 0041-0773. My learned friend put it to the
Next in the prosecution exhibits, that's the document CPAV Secretariat staff.
Thank you, Your Honours.
Le document
Document KENOTP 00410773, confidential, will have the number EVDTOTP 00128, Prosecution Exhibit 128.
So can you comment then on the possibility that the Commission was led in one direction or another by people tendering witnesses before the Commission?
I would find that would be most unlikely. Can't quite comprehend how or which direction anyone would be talking about, or in fact just how that might happen. There were obviously conflicting views between witnesses about things, but then that's the nature of these sorts of commissions of inquiry.
Now, as part of your mandate, or did you see it as part of your mandate for the Commission to determine the individual responsibility of any person behind this violence?
Well, not specifically. I recall part of the formation of this commission. I think it's stated that this commission is a non-judicial body, if you like, discharging its mandate under Kenyan law, and it's and we were looking at a broader range of options as dictated by our mandate, rather than to find the guilt or innocence of any individual, frankly.
And leaving aside findings relating to acts and omissions of security agencies in general, can you confirm that your report does not seek to place blame on any individuals for this violence?
No, it doesn't. In fact, in the introduction, I'm sure it's quite clear that we wrote that if there was any information that tended to point in any direction, that in our view any of those sorts of that information needed to be picked up by another jurisdiction and not ours.
All right. Perhaps then I can ask you to turn to the report at tab 12, it's ERN 00010364. You've already confirmed for the record that you signed off on the report. Can you identify whether this is the report in question?
It's a large report, but from the start of the table of contents and looking towards the end, it would certainly appear to be our report or a copy of it.
And can you confirm that you also had an opportunity to peruse through it, albeit perhaps not read in detail, but peruse the report during the witness preparation session earlier this week?
Yes, that's right.
And you referred then to the introduction and to, as regards the identifying of responsible persons. Can I perhaps ask you to turn to page 15 of the report at ERN 0389. There's a heading there entitled Alleged Perpetrators, : to name or not to name. Can you explain to the Court the thinking behind the Commission and its ultimate decision as regards the naming of suspected or alleged perpetrators?
Well, look, it's pretty well covered here. What our determination was to name or not name. One of the reasons why this piece would be put into our report is because we know, or we knew, that a large number of entities or groups or people may be looking for a document that named people for certain acts. Hence our discussion about and our reporting about our thinking in this report. And I don't know that I've got much to add to that other than the fact we did think about it very carefully about how we would do that, or if we would or not, and we chose not to.
All right.
Mr. Steinberg, would you be tendering it?
I do intend to tender this document, Your Honours. This is a document I understand is in dispute, so I'll tender it now, but following the proposal outlined this morning, I would suggest that this be the subject of written submissions. But I do intend to ask the witness certain questions about it that he may be able to expand on.
Could one of those be whether this document has a front cover or part before the table of contents?
Your Honour, I can certainly ask that question. I think I know the answer, but what I can say is that I don't believe we have that front cover. Sir, can you comment on His Honour's question?
Yes, I can. There is the completed document was bound as a completed document with a cover. Also, the original documents transmitted to the President of Kenya had a letter of transmittal that we signed. But in addition to that, of course, the document was provided to the Government of Kenya in electronic form. It I don't know whether this is that electronic form or part of it, but and the government of Kenya published it the day, in fact, that we provided it to them.
If I can clarify, this document, this particular document, is a copy of a document sourced by the prosecution from open source material, quite possibly on the website of the Commission. Sticking for the moment with the issue of criminal responsibility and your decision not to name persons and your mandate not to determine guilt or innocence of those persons, did you make any recommendations about follow-up in respect of investigations into criminal acts that might have arisen out of the post-election violence?
Yes, we did. There was a recommendation about how that might happen. The creation of a special tribunal, for example, with well, there's quite a bit of detail here actually in the report about what we did recommend, including a combination of Kenyan and international personnel and investigations, just to deal with issues arising from the post-election violence.
And are you aware whether any such commission in Kenya was set up ultimately to investigate this violence criminally?
Well, I don't believe so.
And
I do apologise, Your Honour, because I don't want to forget about it later. My learned friend has said, I wasn't aware of that before, that the document in the bundle is from open source material. And I'm also aware, because I've seen the photographs of the former prosecutor receiving the bundle of documents from the panel of eminent African personalities, that at any time when the prosecutor seeks to tender the original document, irrespective of defence arguments, the certified copy be the one that's relied upon, because it's very dangerous to put in a document from open source. I bought my original copy from a bookshop in Nairobi. It's a certified copy. So it's available. I think the African Union and Kofi Annan, His Excellency Kofi Annan, presented boxes, and including the original, to the former prosecutor. It must be in the archives of the prosecution, and that's the document, not open source, that should be relied upon. Your Honor, I just say that now because I'm sure I'll forget later.
And I take it that was perhaps in the spirit of cooperation. You could also discuss with the prosecutor. I see you have a book in your hand.
Your Honor, I have a very well-read and rather dog-eared copy, but of course you can have a look at it. But it's a marked copy. But Your Honor, this is available, and it was given in the bundle of documents to the former prosecutor. We've seen the photographs in the room upstairs when the prosecutor received it, and that should be the document that's relied upon. That's the only point I'm making.
Would that then be part of your objection? Although I do not want to anticipate it, but we might as well.
Well, Your Honour, that actually wasn't really the principal ground. It's always dangerous to. It's going to be impossible, really, in time to go through every page to check that the open source document tallies with the formal document that was given to the President of the Republic of Kenya and the panel of African experts. And we've seen from other reports there are 2 or 3 different versions circulating. So it's perilous, perhaps, unnecessarily perilous, to rely upon an open source document when the proper copy is available. That's the only point I make.
Mrs. Steinberg, any observations there? There's good sense in tendering the best evidence.
We can certainly do so. The normal procedure which is adopted in these proceedings is that copies are relied upon unless there's a dispute. And under Rule 77, inspection can be granted of any originals to resolve such a dispute.
The point is, yeah, if there is a best evidence, so to speak, that's always it's always wiser to tender the best evidence. In the absence of that, then we can, look at something else. But if there's possibilities that a better or more non-disputed authentic version exists, maybe that's the way to go.
Your Honours, I can look into that and we can possibly tender that as a real exhibit. The reason why a document like this is normally relied upon is that, as you know, we are an electronic court and scanning of bound documents presents something of an issue, and this was, I presume, an easier, more facilitated the registration and a disclosure.
All right, let's proceed.
On the issue of your recommendations, then, I see actually it's contained at page 18. At the top of the page, no, I beg your pardon. Well, the second paragraph, you also recommend, or you say that consideration will be given by the panel to forwarding names of alleged perpetrators to the International Criminal Court for further investigations, in default of setting up of a tribunal.
Where are you?
The second paragraph on page 18 of the report, 0392.
Yes, yes. Yes, I see that. That's right.
Thank you. Now, I'd like to leave the report aside for the time being. I will return to certain other aspects of it, but perhaps I can just indicate at this stage, since it's before Your Honours, that the portions of the report which the prosecutor will seek to rely on, we do say that the whole report should go in for the sake of completeness, but I can indicate that the portions on which we seek to rely will be from the beginning of the document to page 91. I'll give the ERN range in a moment. That comprises the overview chapter in part 1, part 2 dealing with the background to the post-election violence, and then the first part of chapter 3 dealing with violence in the Rift Valley. Bear with me, please. The ERN range is 0001-0364 to 0471. Secondly, a small portion dealing with violence in the South Rift and Kisi region, page 132 of the report. ERN range is 0506 to 0535. And finally, over the page, in the table of contents, chapters 7, 8, 9, and 10, dealing with findings relating to internally displaced persons, the media, the extent and consequences of the post-election violence, and certain discrete findings. And the ERN range there is 0645 to 0726. And I can indicate at this stage, as will be expanded in the written filings, that the prosecution will seek to rely on this for all purposes other than any indication of acts and conduct of the accused persons. I'd like to move on then, sir, to the hearings, the public and private hearings that the CPF Commission held. Can you please give the Court some information about how these hearings were held?
Now, before you do that, are you going to take the witness to these parts you've referred to in your examination in chief of him?
I will do so, Your Honour, in due course, but it's convenient to do it in a certain order which corresponds with the themes I intend to canvass during the course of the evidence.
I will leave that to you, but what I'm trying to do is whether the witness can assist you in indicating that the parts you have indicated, that he has reviewed them as we have them in the court now, or in your bundle, and that those parts are indeed what they wrote. It's up to you
yes.
how you do that.
Yes.
I'm only indicating to you my point of interest in making that inquiry.
You've already indicated that you signed off on the report, but on the specific portions, have you had an opportunity to read through those to confirm that what's contained in this particular document is what you wrote?
Yes, I would say that.
And perhaps for the sake of expedience, I should do that now then. Let's turn to Chapter 1. I'm just going to ask you some questions about what's contained in these chapters. So, page 1, ERN 30375. I do note that there is a duplication in this copy. 0375 has been printed twice. Looking through this up until page 20394, this covers much of the material we've already discussed today. You confirm that this is the background to the setting up mandate and modus operandi of the Commission.
Excuse me, I apologise, but is it possible just to have a short break?
Certainly, I'm sure that's what you want.
Oh, we will take a short break. We can excuse the witness first and then we will rise. Court will rise.
All rise, veuillez vous lever.
All rise. We will wait. Please be seated.
Thank you. Mrs. Steinberg, proceed.
Thank you, Your Honours. Ms. McFadden, are you ready to proceed? Please do indicate if at any other stage you would like to take a break. We were busy going through the portions of the report I had indicated the prosecution intended to rely on. We dealt with Chapter 1. If I could ask you please to turn to page 20 of the report at ERN 0394. More particularly 0395, Chapter 2 entitled Post-Election Violence 2007, How Deep Are the Roots? At the outset, can I ask the besides the three commissioners, did anyone else contribute to the drafting of this chapter?
Yes. Suzanne Müller.
And please can you tell the Chamber who Suzanne Müller is and the circumstances under which she came to participate in the drafting of your report?
She is an academic, I guess, who has a lot of knowledge on issues in Kenya, particularly pre-2007. And she was brought on board to assist in putting together a piece, this chapter, backgrounding, if you like, events prior to 2007.
And what was her field of expertise?
Well, I believe her field of expertise as an academic is in researching and writing about these very subjects, particularly in Kenya in terms of previous election violence and other matters relating to land grievances and ethnic clashes and those sorts of things.
And I see at the foot of page 21 ERN 0395 is a fairly comprehensive footnote setting out sources upon which she relied. Correct?
Yes.
Including, I note, some publications of which she is herself an author or co-author. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Mr. Steinberg, that question raises in my mind a question in relation to the list of staff that you mentioned. So we're clear as to who participated in this work in the CPAV report. Now you've put on record the commissioners and the gazetted members of the commission, including the council and secretary. And then you put on record that the CPAV secretariat staff. Now we're hearing about Susan Müller. Is she indicated in any of these?
No, Your Honour, which is why I'm addressing this now. If I may clarify, proceed to clarify this with the witness.
You will also assist if there's any other person apart from her who's not been indicated on the record who are associated with putting together this report, so we have a clearer picture.
I will do so, Your Honour. Well, we can see from the list of CPAV staff that Ms. Muller's name does not appear on that list. Can you please give some more detail about what capacity Ms. Muller was requested to assist with the Commission?
Oh, and the capacity as an expert in a certain area, so that, but not as a staff member per se.
Now, besides this chapter, which on the face of it deals with the history of violence in Kenya, and particularly the violence relating to elections, did Ms. Muller have any other input into the CPAV final report?
No. No, she didn't.
And did she take part in any other of the investigative processes or hearings?
No, I just can't recall when she came to Kenya, but no, she was not part of the investigation team or anything like that.
And besides Ms. Muller, did any other persons contribute to the drafting of the report, apart from yourself and your fellow commissioners?
Apart from the three commissioners, you mean? Three commissioners primarily, but obviously other pieces of work we asked to be done around specific areas like gender-based violence, for example. I asked specifically Melinda Ricks to prepare a piece around that, to pull together, if you like, some things around gender-based violence, and she did that.
Were the other persons who provided input, were they all CPF staff members?
Yes, that's right.
Perhaps this would be a convenient stage just to ask you then to look at the following tab, tab 13. For present purposes, you can just look at the cover page at 1288. It's entitled Commission of Inquiry into Post-Election Violence, CPEV, Investigation Section Final Report, and after that, Gender-Based Violence Report. What is the genesis of these two reports?
These reports were specifically requested to be put together. Obviously, the investigation section, if you like, final report, was compiled by Bob Grinstead, who was head of investigations, and as I've already said, the gender-based violence report by Melinda Ricks, who has expertise in that area.
And did these reports form part of the material on which you based your findings collectively as commissioners?
Yes, they perform part of the total resource at our disposal to write the final report.
Thank you, Mr. McFadgen. At this stage, perhaps I can just indicate that this is another document the prosecution will seek to tender. Only the investigation section final report. For present purposes, the gender-based violence report is not considered relevant. I can indicate again the ERN ranges.
All right. So we keep things organized. If you're going to discuss this document any further, I recommend that we wait until that stage.
Yes.
The reason I say that is because we're in the middle of dealing with the main report, and you were taking the witness through parts of the report so that he can authenticate those parts for you specifically. So let's not insert something else in the middle, another report that is, while we're discussing an existing one.
Certainly, Your Honours. I was simply trying to address the question that Your Honour addressed to me earlier, but I will come back to that. Mr. McFadgen, let's then proceed with the CPEF final report and finish up with Chapter 2. Can you confirm, sir, whether that chapter corresponds with your recollection of what was signed off by the CPEF commissioners?
Yes, it seems to be so, yes. Yes.
The next relevant portion commences at ERN 0411, page 37 of the report, Chapter 3, entitled Violence in the Rift Valley. Now, the prosecution is most interested in the section starting on that page entitled the North Rift Region, dealing inter alia with the Uasin Gishu, Nandi North and Nandi South districts. But for the purposes of wider context, you're also interested in your findings for the Central Rift Region, excluding Nakuru, Naivasha and Narok, and the South Rift and Kisii regions. So if I could ask you then to look at ERN range 0411, 0411 at page 37 through to page 91. Halfway down that page until the heading Koibatek District. And if you can indicate that whether these, you've had an opportunity to go through this and it accords with your recollection of your findings.
Sorry, concluding at which page? I'm sorry?
It's page 91 of the report. Oh, just a second, I think I might have made a mistake. Sorry, it should be ERN page 0471. It's page 97 of the report. I beg your pardon. Just above the heading Nakuru District.
So you're no longer interested in 37 to 91. You're not interested in that part. Is that it, Mr. Steinberg?
No, Your Honours. The part I'm interested commences at 37 and ends at 97. Not 91. That was 91 is the start of the last section. It ends at 97.
So you want the witness to look at 37 to 97.
Indeed. And the ERN range, once again, 0506 to 0535. No, sorry, my mistake again. 0364 to 0471.
I have 0411
Yeah.
to 0471.
Yes. I beg your pardon, Your Honours. The first portion we've already dealt with. That's up until 0410. So the part I'm interested right now is page 37 of the report, 0411 to page 97, 0471. Apologies.
Yes, that's. I can confirm that it's part of our report.
And the final portion which I'm interested in commences at page 271 of the report. This time I will check my facts first. It's ERN 0645.
Did you not earlier indicate 0536? Or did I get it wrong?
Yes. Yes, I've skipped a portion again. Yes, there's a short portion at page 132 of the report. I beg your pardon. ERN 0506. From the heading South Rift and Kisii region, halfway down that page. until 0535 on page 161 of the report, till the end of that page. Can you confirm that, please?
Yes, I can confirm that's part of our report.
Finally, then, year-end 0645, page 271. The chapter headed Internally Displaced Persons until 0726. Page 352 of the report, which encompasses the following chapters. Chapter 7, Internally Displaced Persons. Chapter 8, The Media and Post-Election Violence. Chapter 9, Extent and Consequences of Post-Election Violence. And Chapter 10, Findings in relation to selected topics. Can you confirm that, please?
Yes, I can confirm that.
Thank you, Your Honours. I believe the witness has then identified and confirmed the relevant portions. As stated earlier, the prosecution will seek to tender the whole report, since the context we submit is important, but those are the sections upon which we will intend to rely. The next topic which I intended to ask you to clarify, sir, relates to then the hearings of witnesses in this case. And can you explain to the Chamber the modus operandi which the Commission selected as far as the method of hearing oral evidence?
Yes, the methods were really principally twofold. One, as I think I've said before, were hearings in public, covered by a range of media, television, print, radio, and took the form of a quasi-court, I guess, where witnesses were called, they were sworn on oath to give evidence, truthful evidence. In most cases provided exhibits in support of their evidence, which were secured, and they were open to the examination by questioning by the Commission, counsel assisting and counsel withstanding.
And to what extent was the veracity of the evidence provided by these witnesses tested?
Well, I'd have to say that that we commissioners were not shrinking violets when we were asking questions, testing the veracity of what was presented to us. And many of the counsel withstanding were very particular in their questioning of certain witnesses as well. So I would say, from my point of view, the veracity of their testimony would be similar to anyone giving evidence in a court.
Can you comment on the spectrum of interests represented by counsel withstanding in these proceedings?
The spectrum was broad, beginning counsel withstanding, for example, representing, I guess, for example, the Kenyan Police Service, the Administration Police, the NSIS, and other government agencies. Others were representing specific interest groups, victims, and there were a number of those. There were victims that may reside in certain geographical areas, for example. People were standing for the, I think, women's, I can't think of the title exactly, feeder it was women's legal group, for example, and others.
And to round off on this point, were any of the major political parties represented amongst council?
No, they weren't. The Commission made a decision not to grant any council was standing for political parties.
Why is that?
Well, from memory, our rationale was that not only did they give evidence, I think their secretaries gave evidence on either side of the political spectrum, but also I guess they had other opportunities in the public domain to express their views about things that were not afforded, frankly, to other people.
All right. Well, I think you partially answered my next question, which is if they were not represented by council, what opportunities did the various political parties have to put forward their views? Can you add anything to your answer in that regard?
Well, as I've said, they were represented in before the Commission in open hearings. In addition, we did have some consultative meetings, we would call it, with the political parties.
One last clarification. When you say they were represented before the Commission, I understand you're not referring to legal representation. What did you mean by that?
No, they presented their position, I should say, more accurately, as a witness. I think the secretaries of each of the main political parties were those witnesses.
Thank you, sir. Your Honours, I see I've exceeded the time allocation. Would this be a convenient time to take the break?
We will now rise for a lunch break. Witness, we will let you have your break as well. So we will meet again at 2:30.
All rise. We will wait.